Hi friends, my name is Dan, and I'm the Executive Director for the Derby Historical Society. You guys are in the General David Humphreys house. It's the circa 1698 colonial house that you see when you drive up Elm Street in Ansonia. Now, Ansonia was a borough of Derby, and at one point in time, all of this area was also Derby. So I know that we're addressing our friends from the Derby Public School District. Hi, Dr. Conway and Jim Galdea. Thank you so much for helping us organize this today and bring you a bit of history in a fun, exciting, and informative way. Now, because of the current state of affairs, you guys are not able to come visit our house, our field trip. We're going on our 40th consecutive year of offering this experience one-on-one with docents, 6 of them that would lead you through this house. And don't worry, I'm not going to be the one leading the tour. We actually have somebody here who is going to be treating you to a little, preview of what our program is. A tour of the house touching on different topics in the room, something you might have used in the past, and also on your behavior when you walk into a room asking for permission, and all of the little nuances that go along with 1762. So why 1762? Well, our illustrious hero, General David Humphreys, was born in this house in 1752. So in 1762, the young David would have been right around your age. So that's exciting. You're at his birthplace. You're in his house. So a few things I just want to touch on really quickly before I take the camera and you watch our wonderful presenter show you the house. The Derby Historical Society is a nonprofit organization. We rely on your support, on the public's support, on grants, on the support of the community so that we could just stay in existence. We are the Valley's only regional historical society, and we've been doing that since 1946, making history come alive. So please, parents, youngsters, teachers, sign up for our email updates. If you go to derbyhistorical.org, it's very easy. Just click sign up and you will get those updates when we send them out for events, presentations, programs. If you're watching this prior to tomorrow's opening event, which will be the June 13th Connecticut Open House Day, that's going to start at 11 o'clock. It will take place outside in our backyard. We'll be practicing safe distancing. We'll have signs up for people who need a little bit of guidance. We'll have masks, PPE, all that kind of stuff. So again, visit derbyhistorical.org, sign up for the email newsletter. If you can, spread the word. If you can, make a small donation, and you could also do that on our website. Lastly, I just want to tell you that after this presentation is finished, after you watch this, go onto YouTube. Check out our video of Lieutenant Colonel Humphreys in his words. Type in LT Colonel Humphreys ... in his words. You'll see 2 versions come up on the screen. One of them is a longer 14-minute version. The other one is a little bit shorter at 6 minutes and 11 seconds. That's something that we're very proud of. It's a visit from David Humphreys 20 years after you visit today. It takes place in 1782. Just how did General David Humphreys, or young Humphreys, become so involved in the fight against the greatest military might in all of the world when he was destined to be a teacher or a minister? And that video will tell you the story. It's a little follow-up from what you're going to see today. So we're going to pass the baton here. I'm going to be behind the camera, and you are going to witness our very awesomely talented docent presenting. So here we go.
Hi everybody, my name is Sarah Hawkins Worcester, that is my colonial name, and I'm welcoming you with open arms to our wonderful house, the David Humphreys house. It's great to see you, I'm glad that you're here. I'm going to go through a few of the rooms and have a sneak peek as to actually what you see when you come to visit in person. So right now we are in what's called the keeping room. This was basically the main part of the house. This is where a lot of things happen. This is where we cooked. This is where we gathered. This is where we baked. We prepared things. And this fireplace right here is the one where we did a lot of the main cooking, but it also provided the heat. and provided light. So thankfully, we don't have it lit today because it is definitely a hot day. But imagine back in 1762, wearing all your clothing and having to prep this fire and have it going because there was no electricity. We have to remember that. No electricity, no indoor plumbing. So we had to keep this going because we had to cook our meals all day. So as a mistress of the home, that's what they would call us, we actually did the cooking, we did the cleaning, we actually even served as like a doctor, a nurse, if we couldn't get a doctor, because they only would come around once in a while and travel. So if you look above, we have herbs up here. So that would actually be something that we would use for flavoring our foods, but also for medicine. So isn't that neat? Going back to the fireplace here, you can see with the candle here, this is our beehive oven. Now, it was very common to use bread as one of our staples. And for an average household of about 6 people, I would probably bake about 40 loaves of bread a day. Yes, a week. 40 loaves, 40. And inside here, this is where we could also bake pies, we could do all kinds of things. So we didn't waste anything. After the first day or two, maybe the bread starts getting a little stale, so we would end up using it for other things. Breadcrumbs, we would do thickening of stews, we would do anything that we can to make the bread useful. So, speaking of that, what did we do to get that? Well, we have this little grater here, which is kind of cool. So we would take that stale old bread and we would grate it and then add it to whatever we were doing. A lot of things had to be imported, and Derby was known as a seaport, and it was a big one. So we actually had a lot of imports, one of them being coffee. And so we would take our beans and we'd actually roast them by hand, okay, over the fire until they got to that nice brown color that we like. And once they were roasted, we would actually grind our own coffee using a coffee mill. And so we dump the beans in there, and I know it's a little squeaky because it's old, and grind that up until it got nice and fine, and then we'd have our coffee grounds. So that's pretty cool. The other thing, just so you know, is that this area in the valley, known for one of the biggest crops, which are called hops. And this is what's used to make beer. And so this was a very large crop that we had, and it was something that was very prominent in the area. If you take a look right here, this is the bread box, and this is where the dough and the bread making was made, and this is how we would store our dough and everything like that. Okay, so we have a lot of stuff in this room, but I have to move on. So we're going to go into Reverend Humphreys' study, okay? And this is where he would do his sermons, his writings, and also where he taught his children, David, of course. And so he had his ink and quill, and also students, if they had a chance to go to school, they carried this thing called a horn book. And on that is where they would learn their alphabet and also the Our Father prayer, because we are a Christian colony. And kids had no excuse to lose this. In fact, they would tie it. We would tie it on them around their waist or maybe even around their neck. Okay? And in order to practice, they would use a slate, maybe some sort of chalk. Think of it as a modern iPad. All right? I do want to point out to you that we had a very famous commander. His name is Commander Isaac Hull, and he actually was he was born in Derby and lived in Shelton. And so this is a replica of the ship that called the Old Ironsides, and there's a great story behind it. And if you have a chance, you can go and visit up in Boston and see and have a tour of that. So that's why we have that here. He was a very famous, actually was able to flee the British from actually being defeated. So anyway, so this is our study here, and now we're going to move on into Lady Humphreys' parlor. Okay. Lady Humphreys' parlor. So she was obviously David's mother, and she did entertaining. We have here set up a tea set with the cups and saucers, and it was very common for her to do that for a lot of guests that would come and visit. And sometimes for the common folk, they may not have they may have brought their own cup and saucer, but she was nice enough to provide them. So I want to show you the portrait of David Humphreys. This was painted by Gilbert Stuart, a very talented artist who actually did many portraits on George Washington, and I'll show you that in a minute. But right here we have our Reverend Mansfield, who actually was the minister to the Episcopal Church, longest running minister for approximately 72 years, I believe. So we move over here, and I just want to show you, this was I'm not saying this is from Gilbert Stuart, but he has actually a lot of paintings of George Washington. So David was connected with George Washington. He was actually his right-hand man, or as we call the aide-de-camp. He helped him with a lot of different things. And it's really cool to know that here, a man in Derby was connected to our founding father. Here's another fireplace. You can tell it's deep, and it also was used to cook and to provide heat. And we have our reflector oven, and this was something that we would use to cook. Okay, we're going to move on to a really cool room, and as you enter, you'll see this is where David was born. Okay, we call this either the boarding room or the coming and going room. So this is actually where he was born, which is pretty cool to know that this man who was basically connected to George Washington in the Revolutionary period was right here in this room. And there's lots of fun things about this. It's a rope bed. We show you guys in person what they did. Again, we had no plumbing, so we had to use our own washing station and get the water from the well, bring it in here so that we could wash our hands and our faces. There's lots of little artifacts in here to show you what we had. The pants that you see there are boys' pants. Everything was made by hand through either using linen or cotton. And so yeah, it's pretty cool, this room. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually show you the upstairs of the house and tell you a little bit more about David Humphreys. Now is what we call our schoolroom, but it was used as bedrooms for the kids. This does not have a fireplace in here, okay? But what I want to show you is, again, the importance of David Humphreys. And I know I stress that because in these pictures you will see there's George Washington, and that's him resigning, and then there's David Humphreys right there. And then there's a depiction of it on the bottom showing you who all the other people were. And this is another version of that picture, okay? And you can see there he is right there. So look at that, right next door, right next to him. And we just have a nice print of David Humphreys, nice portrait of him. He also was put in charge of retiring the colors. Now, if some of you don't know what they are, what the colors means, it's the flag, the enemy's flag. So when we won the Revolutionary War, he actually presented the British flag in Philadelphia. So that's a very big honor. We walk over here. This is a great little timeline. So he went to Yale University and he studied. A very good writer. He actually was minister to Spain, or the ambassador to Spain, so he actually traveled across the pond, so to speak, and he was the first person in our country to bring over merino sheep. And you might be like, okay, what's merino sheep? They were very special sheep because they had a very soft wool. And so he was successful, and he was able to bring those over, 100 sheep, along with caretakers, shepherds, and out of those 100, only 3 died, which means he had a huge success. and then he ended up opening up a mill, the Rimmons Falls Mill, Woolen Mill, which is in Seymour right now. You could probably go see that and visit that. And he started that. And what's really cool about that, oh, by the way, sorry, this is another depiction of him surrendering the colors. Okay, and you can see the date of 1781. Again, that's the British flag, and that's presenting that to them. Let's see. One thing that I love to point out is that there is an actual letter from Thomas Jefferson saying, "Thank you for the material that you gave me to use for my suit." And there's more details in that, but I think that is really impressive that David Humphreys received something from such a prominent person. And so we have one more thing here, and then we gotta move on to one more room. But in here, it was common back in those days, probably for superstitious purposes, that people would conceal or hide shoes or other artifacts. And as you can tell, these are very old, they are original, they're made of leather, and they're small. There's no right or left foot to it. Because of leather, they kind of just form to their own feet. These were discovered in this particular house in another room, which we're going to show you now. Okay? So, this is the spinning room now. It was a bedroom at that point, and we use this for when you visit to actually learn all about the ways of how the mistresses and the families would actually take wool from sheep and create it into yarn, which would in turn be used to make clothing or blankets or anything else. So if you look around the room, you'll see we have different spinning wheels, which you get to use and learn how to spin. We also have a larger wheel, it's called a great wheel. And one of the things that's pretty cool is that you, as a participant in the tour, get to actually touch some of the things that the kids back then, and I'm telling you that little kids would help in processing the wool. So these are called carders, and they're kind of like dog brushes in a sense, that's what I look. And this was part of the process of how to take raw wool that would be all kind of curly and whatever, and make it smooth so that you can spin it into there and make it nice, right? So this is one of my favorite workshops because I get to have something that's really exciting to put together. Now, remember I mentioned the concealment shoes? Well, here's our other fireplace that we have. This was definitely just used for heat and light, but right around here, this is where those shoes were found. So again, we're not sure, but it's probably a tradition, a superstitious thing. Maybe it was for good luck, but yeah, during the restoration, we found them there. So that's kind of neat. And the thing about wool, you know, it was a long process, and they like to dye their wool. They like to actually add color. I mean, I'm wearing lots of different colors, as you can see. And so they would use natural materials. Maybe some privet hedge, which would make it green. Or maybe they would use indigo, which is this beautiful blue. They would use, actually, cochineal beetles, which is out of an insect to make this beautiful crimson red. So there's lots of fun things to see here, and I hope that you enjoyed taking a sneak peek at our rooms. And the one thing I have to say is that I love this place so much because it's like a mini Sturbridge village. Hands-on, you get to enjoy a little bit of everything. So when you visit, either you get to go spin, you get to weave, which is something that you get to take home and make like a little bookmark, or you get to cook. And that to me is really fun. The kids love it. They get to bake a cake, and it's all hands-on. It's lots of fun, a lot of history, and I will tell you, it is a gem of this area, and I hope that you visit as soon as you can.
Awesome. Mistress Hawkins Worcester, thank you so much. Students, teachers, thank you for all that you've done during the current state of affairs, all of the hard work that you've put in. And it's home stretch right now for you guys. You're about to go on summer break, and I hope that you all enjoy it. Please come back to the Humphreys house when we're ready to receive you, and tour these halls again that have welcomed so many people over the years, consider giving a gift that's worth and lasts a lifetime. Any kind of small donation will help us tremendously. We're going through a very extensive renovation at the moment, or restoration, and you could kind of see that as we were walking through the house. But again, this is the David Humphreys house. This is a place where we will welcome you again to a day in 1762. All right, have a great, great day.